Oh, no. Hi, it's you again. Welcome back. In this week's episode of YouTube Art School, I'll show you how to draw simple hands and feet. You know, the kind you would find on a simple character. Not too big on the screen, and so not much detail necessary. Simple hands and feet. Those are probably the ones you'll be drawing most of the time anyways, you know, instead of those big, like, fully rendered hands and feet. So it's guaranteed to help. Let's go. I'll demonstrate my entire construction method and how I simplify all of the details. Oh, hey, quick, we're late for class. All right, class is in session. Pay attention. Also, pay the video fee of either 1 like or 1 sub before you keep... Oh, wow, that was quick. Well done. Let's keep going. Now, instead of just kind of diluting the content that I teach in my art program into a 10-minute YouTube video, like I said in the intro, I'll be demoing my personal recipe when it comes to drawing hands and feet. So it's going to be quite different from what my students might have seen in the class. Different how? Well, different in the sense that it would require you to have solid fundamentals already. So maybe not as useful if you're a complete beginner. In my art program, for example, I teach a recipe that is much less elaborate, much better for beginners. And I'm not trying to shamelessly plug my art program here. I'm just trying to explain the difference between different types of recipes. Different recipes have different level requirement, kind of like in a video game. Anyways, hopefully by explaining how I construct simple hands and feet, then how I go about simplifying the details as I complete the drawings, it should hopefully help you get a better grasp on the process, and maybe it's a recipe that you'll also be able to use, or use partially at least, to give your characters the hands and feet they so deserve. Now, since process matters when it comes to recipes, I've made sure to record a video in 60 frames per second so that you can slow it down if you want to observe what I'm doing a little bit better. Okay, now here are the kinds of hands and feet that I'm talking about. As you can see, probably a little too simple to be seen full screen here, but at a distance, like on a regular character, good enough for me. So let me explain a little bit better what I did here. But first, let's pop in a skeleton in here. Spooky. But yeah, with the skeleton in here, I should be able to explain a little bit better my thought process when it comes to my recipe. Because a lot of the guidelines that I put down on paper or on canvas represent bones or groups of bones. And so looking at the hands first, we're going to start from the wrist because that's what the hand's attached to. And so pretty important. So we're not going to be worrying too much about the inside here of the silhouette, but definitely this line here that kind of goes towards the outside and then back into towards the palm of the hand. And then kind of starting from that, I'm going to have 2 big ellipses here. The one on the inside here for the thumb is going to touch another ball, which is basically this joint right here, the extremity of the first metacarpal. The first circle here, that's just for like the massive muscle for the thumb, like this big chunk here. On the outside here, same idea. It's like this mass right there. And then from here, I'm going to do a bunch of shenanigans, essentially continuing that ellipse all the way to the knuckles, and then extending that one laterally here all the way to the other side. And then I'll have the ball of the thumb here kind of joining in a spike right about down the middle there. But yeah, this abomination is essentially how I simplify the palm. And then maybe something worth noting here is that all of this stuff is the same length, more or less. So that's the same length as this, and this is the same length as that, and as that too. The only thing that will kind of change is going to be that little piece right there, because that, especially here in between, that's going to stretch. That's the muscle, right? So it's going to stretch depending on how the thumb moves. Draw the tip of the fingers, a little bigger for the thumb, and then kind of connect the dots. And so yeah, if we look at the original now, I think it's a little more clear what's going on here. And then maybe like a final guideline that I keep in mind when drawing hands would be the width of the wrist being approximately the same as like the 3 middle fingers, so the index, major, and the ring finger. And also usually those fingers are going to be in the same direction as the wrist. So, you know, if the wrist is kind of pointing up this way, those fingers are going to follow suit. Maybe another one too, final one. The length of the fingers in relation to the palm of the hand. You know, when you're looking at the hand open, the fingers will usually be a little bit shorter than the entire palm. But that's going to be the opposite when looking at the top of the hand, if we consider the knuckles. So let's draw another one here from the top to look at the whole process from start to finish. So always starting from the wrist here. So the little bit poking out here, like the part of the socket of the ulna. And then on the other side here, the inside, towards the thumb. That's going to be part of the radius, the socket of the radius. And the hand's going to be approximately something like this. Continuing the wrist into the first finger, into the ring finger. Then I'm going to have my ellipse for the thumb, the first ball for the knuckle. Then on the other side, we have the other ellipse going into the knuckle here for the pinky. And then all the way to the other side for the index knuckle. And then we can draw the other knuckles in between there, in that little compartment, right? Make the ball for the thumb here a little pointy, touching the knuckle for the index. And then lengthwise again, I mean, we can start here after the knuckles, and then the finger is going to be a little shorter than the body of the hand. But yeah, if we consider the knuckles being part of the fingers, which they kind of are, then the finger itself now would be a little bit longer. So maybe something more like this. And then same thing with the thumb here. And then the first joint for the fingers is going to be straight down the middle, if we consider the entire length of the finger, including the knuckles. Now for the last joint, that's going to be just slightly past the halfway point of whatever's left of the finger. For the thumb here, the first joint kind of ends at the end of that ball right there. And then the other joint is going to be right down the middle. Very simple, right there. Now we can close all the shape, clean up this mess here a little bit. And just like that, we have a hand. So those are basically the only guidelines or like construction lines that I keep in mind when drawing hands. I like this method, considering all of these as volumes, like ball shaped or egg shapes, because they're easy to imagine in 3 dimensions. So let's say you rotate the hand, maybe it's a little foreshortened. You can still draw these pretty easily. And also I kind of like, you know, the structure that it gives to the hand. So that's how I do my hand. Let's move on to the foot here. And then I have my scaly foot here to once again explain kind of just the guidelines I'm going to keep in mind here. There's not a whole lot of muscles in the foot. We have a little bit here on the top and then a lot underneath, but that's about it, and they don't get too big. So most of those guidelines refer to, parts of the skeleton, because that's really what's going to influence the silhouette. So overall, you know, looking at this shape here, it's really just the leg that continues into the toes. So it kind of just this nice slope, continuous slope, and then plopped onto that, we're going to have the heel. It kind of just sticks out from there. Now, if we continue on the side of the foot here, I use these 2 balls to represent kind of the two heads, the 2 extremities of the 5th metatarsal. And then the top of the foot is going to have kind of like this big cover here, this big hood. And that's going to be the equivalent of the palm of the hand, because all the fingers, or the toes in this case, are going to stem from there. As you can see here, we don't see the line of the toes going any past that line, even though in reality they go all the way up here. But yeah, anyways, past that, we're going to have the toes. And then towards the top of the foot here, we have like a slight change of angle, and that's going to be the top here, where all the fingers, all the toes begin, really. You can think of this bump here as like the top of your knuckles, essentially. And this bump here represents the extremity of the fibula. It's going to be a little bit lower. On the inside here, it's going to be just a little bit higher, and that's going to be, of course, the extremity for the tibia. Now, if we look at the toes, for the big toe, we're going to have that line here on the top of the foot kind of continue all the way down until kind of reaches the end of the first metatarsal right here. Then we're going to go straight a little bit, like a nice little slope, and then straight again for the tip of the toe. For the other toes, seen from the side here, it's going to be pretty simple. So kind of just these 3 sections, 1, 2, 3, and then up, 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 up. And those are the kind of guidelines that I keep in mind when drawing feet. So we can do a shot maybe from the inside now to kind of go over what we saw so far. So we're gonna start here with the leg, then going into the foot here. We're gonna have the heel sticking out on the inside here, the tibia, extremity for the tibia. So starting from below that point here, we're gonna go and wrap around all the way like this to the fibula on the other side, the extremity of the fibula. Once again here on the inside, it's slightly higher than on the outside. Now on the top here, we're gonna have again kind of like the line breaking for the equivalent of the knuckles of the feet. Then we're gonna have the body of the foot kind of continuing just like it did here from the outside. And then from there, the toes will insert. We're gonna have here the first joint here for the big toe. From that joint here all the way to the extremity of the tibia here, it's gonna be pretty much a straight line. So that's kind of what I consider, more or less. Then here, what did we have? Slope, flat, slope, flat. Let's do that again here. So slope, flat, slope, flat. And then for the other toes, very simple once again. So angle, angle, flat, angle, angle. The small toe I don't think we'll be able to see from this particular angle. But now let's erase and clean this up a bit. Not a ton of detail, but once again, that's kind of the point here, to keep them simple so that it would be great for characters that are seen about this size. Now I'm going to be drawing a bunch more to see how the construction for the feet and the hand might apply to different, different scenarios, different feet, different hands, and different angles. I'll be letting the video play for the next few minutes, and then I'll pick it up towards the end to wrap this video up. See you in a bit. Hey, hi, I'm back. So that was a good session. As you can see, able to get a lot of hands, a lot of feet relatively quickly, so only a few minutes at most for each. Now, they're not super detailed. That's not the point. This recipe is meant to be super quick. If I wanted to draw something that has more detail, like a fully detailed hand, something in like crazy foreshortening, something like that, I would definitely look up a bunch of references and then most likely use a different recipe. This recipe works really well for small stuff, for stuff that's meant to be low detail. But yeah, I hope that helped. Most experienced artists will have their own recipes, for different things, and that might be the case for you, or you might not have any recipe. Anyways, if you already had your recipe, maybe there's a couple of things in here that you could grab from, or maybe if you've never had a recipe, let's say you've been drawing from reference this whole time without ever trying to draw from imagination, give those kinds of recipes a go. First, start to use it alongside your reference, but then try to do it on your own. You're going to have kind of like a structure. The whole point of this is to have a plan on what to tackle when you don't have anything in front of you. It's been a huge help for me to draw these kinds of things from imagination, but it also helps when drawing from reference. So yeah, that's that. Now, if you've been looking at me sketching away like this, and you've been wondering to yourself, how do I get my hand on a brush like that? This is the best brush I've ever seen. You wouldn't be wrong, and you can find it in the top right corner of the screen right here. You can download it for free if you haven't already. That's gonna be it for today's class. I hope you will join me next week when we finally tackle the topic of